Hey, what's up YouTube? This is Hey Guys Laughing Out Loud back again with another video. Today's video is a continuation of my Steam software with a DS4 Pro controller course. This video will cover bugs, fixes, and workarounds, which mind you are not controller specific. However, this video will not cover or recreate every single bug or issue that you may encounter within Steam. Just a heads up, some of the terminology I will be using might sound a bit unfamiliar to you new users. However, this will change as you become more familiar with Steam. Timestamps can be found in the comments below for each bug and issue. Should any of you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to comment below. Now, before we get started, I do want to apologize for the delay on the release of my Steam video courses. I actually began pre-production on them shortly after I posted the Steam intro video, but then Steam released a major update patch on March 22nd, which changed several things I had planned to discuss in my videos. Then a few days later, on March 26th, they released yet another update. So rather than posting outdated info, I chose to delay the videos in order to rework them. If any of you are interested in the Steam patch notes, I have posted the URL in the comments section below. Now, without any further ado, let's get started. The first issue I want to discuss is Big Picture Mode. Steam has two user interfaces, Standard and Big Picture Mode. Standard mode is your typical PC user interface that primarily utilizes a mouse point-and-click system to navigate and launch your games, and generally, when running in this mode, only utilizes around 1% of CPU system resources. Big Picture Mode basically turns your PC into a console-like experience, which allows you to use your game controller for navigation and game launching. The issue with Big Picture Mode is that it is a bit of a CPU resource hog, which uses about 6 to 12%. And I will demonstrate that here. So I'm going to go ahead and launch Big Picture Mode by hitting my PS Home button. Obviously, you'll notice a big jump in the CPU usage, and then it'll kind of level out a bit. The Steam Client Bootstrapper there is, right now it's kind of hanging around 6%, but it will actually jump up once I start to go and navigate within my games. And ideally, you're not going to be doing this when you're playing your games. When you're playing your games, it's probably going to level out around 6 to 8%. Now, why is this an issue? Well, I'll explain. This is actually only going to generally affect you if you have a low-end gaming PC or you're playing games that are heavily CPU driven and you're trying to squeeze every last frame of your FPS. There is no fix for this problem. The workaround that I suggest is just to use standard mode. Now, just a side note, for those of you who do want that console UI navigation like what we're getting here from Big Picture Mode, there are other game launchers available such as Launchbox, Razer Cortex, Photon Game Manager, Game Room, Gaming PC, and Gamer Desk. Now, just a disclaimer, I am not promoting these programs. I'm not affiliated with them in any way. I'm just throwing them out there in case you guys want to try them. However, from my experience, launchers generally pose yet another issue, which leads me into our next topic on programs with overlays. Now, programs with overlays generally pose a few problems, and there are a few programs that can oftentimes disable the use of the Steam configuration overlay, which will prevent users from being able to configure controller profiles. Some of the programs I have used and found to prevent Steam from working correctly are Launchbox and Fraps. Now, Launchbox, you can create a Steam shortcut for each game and then link that game shortcut in Launchbox, and this will, for the most part, allow you to access your configuration. However, it is very long and tedious process and sometimes still doesn't work 100%. However, I may at a later time create a video on how to set Steam up with Launchbox if I get enough comments to request it. Now, I mentioned Fraps earlier, and Fraps is an old program that a lot of us used to use because it was lightweight. It allowed you to basically monitor your FPS, take screenshots, and record video. However, I discovered when using it that it was causing problems with the Steam configuration. in order to get in and configure my profiles. So I had to get rid of it. And I found a workaround, and the workaround for me, I'm a NVIDIA user, I decided to use GeForce Experience. This works perfectly fine with no issues. It provides FPS counter, screenshots, video capture, filters, and live streaming. For you AMD users, unfortunately, AMD does not offer an equivalent to the NVIDIA software package, so my recommendation is just to use Steam's integrated FPS counter, screenshots, video capture, and live stream option. Now, there is another option for live streaming if you so desire, and that is to use OBS. I highly recommend OBS. It's a great program. I use it for recording. I'm actually using GeForce Experience for my live streaming because I am actually live streaming on YouTube instead of Twitch. And I find that GeForce Experience is far more user-friendly for starting and stopping my streams than to use OBS. I just want to mention about XSplit. I personally have not tested XSplit, but just keep in mind if you do start to use it and you're not able to access your configuration, that could be the problem. In all honesty, just use OBS if you need to. The next issue I wish to discuss is mode shift buttons. Mode shift buttons, when used, will affect your entire action set and all action layers within that set. This is a problem because it will cause button overlapping conflicts, which prevents mode shift and action layers from working together. I discovered this when I was attempting to add mode shift buttons to an action layer. Now, I hope Valve will fix this issue at some point, as it will open up a lot more doors for button customization. Now, I just want to kind of demonstrate here a little bit of what I'm talking about. I won't be able to reproduce the issue completely, but here we have the action set as highlighted as game. And below to the left that I've highlighted, 1-4, that's an action layer. So before I select the action layer, if I go to my button configuration here, if you notice, my mode shift is unused. Well, I didn't want to actually apply the mode shift to that. I actually wanted to apply it to my action layer 1-4. So I went to the button configuration. I went to mode shift, and I applied the button pad, and then I applied the whatever shift button I wanted, and I set up my buttons. But unfortunately, when I did that, it actually ended up applying it to the entire action set and any action layers. So it pretty much made it useless. You can't use them together. So there is no fix. The workaround is just use action layers or mode shift, but not both at the same time. Now, personally, I recommend action layers as they are far more versatile. Now, the first bug I want to discuss is toggle multi-button on. Now, the problem with this and the bug and what it does is when you apply multi-buttons and then you decide to remove them and revert back to an original single button, it doesn't remove them and it just continues to hold on to those buttons that you assigned. And I will kind of demonstrate that here. Now, right now, if I go to my button configuration, if you notice that I have my X symbol button assigned to the A button. I'm just going to use that as a reference point here as demonstration. So I'm going to hit the triangle button to turn on or toggle multi-button on. This is going to allow me to assign as many buttons as I want to this particular button action. So when that button is pressed, all these buttons are pressed at the same time. Now, obviously, I wouldn't want to actually set this particular button configuration up. This is just a demonstration. So as you can see, now all those buttons are set to that single X symbol button press. But let's say whatever I was trying to do, let's say it didn't work the way I wanted it to. So I want to remove that. I want to remove those buttons. All right, well, if I hit the square button, it removed the buttons. I'm going to go ahead and select A. And then I'm going to exit back out. And you notice that it actually kept the A button and also the number 8. Now, this is a little random. Sometimes it'll keep more buttons, sometimes not, but it'll always keep more than what you initially set up. So as a fix and the best workaround is to go into your activators for that particular button. I only have one activator here. and just remove it by selecting the activator type, going to None and remove activator, select it, exit out, and it removes that activator. Then you can go back in and go ahead and reassign that button to button A, and you're good to go. That is the workaround for that particular issue, as there is no fix. Now the next bug I want to discuss is always on actions. Now always on actions, if enabled on your default action set, will prevent you from accessing the Steam configuration when pressing the PS Home button. Now this is a problem because you need to be able to get in and out of your configuration in order to set up your profile. Now there is no fix for this bug, but there are two workarounds that I can offer to you. The first workaround is to use always on actions within an action layer. So right now, if you notice, I have my 3D.kbm action set highlighted. That is my default for now for this demonstration. I'm going to go ahead and highlight my melee action layer. If you notice, on my always on actions, I have the left shift button turned on. That means that whenever I activate that action layer, I will not be able to access my configuration while that action layer is enabled. Once I have removed that action layer from 3D.kbm, now I can go in and access my configuration. So the point is, do not use your always on actions on your default configuration. Put it in an action layer, or, and my second workaround, put it on an alternative action set. So what you can do is, let's say I want to make my 3D.DS4 my secondary action set. It's going to work very similar to an action layer in regards to the way I'm using it, as it's just going to be a temporary action set, but the 3D.kbm is my main. So I can go ahead and go to 3D.ds4. I can go ahead and assign the shift button to my always on action. And whenever I'm on this action set, meaning it's active, I won't be able to access my Steam configuration. But that's okay, because I obviously have a button to swap back to my main or default action set, which is 3D.kbm. Once I do that, I can now access my Steam configuration. And those are the two workarounds that I suggest utilizing to prevent any problems of getting into your configuration when using always on actions. Okay, the next bug I want to address is action layer hold. Now, action layer hold is in reference to applying an action layer by just basically holding a specific button, which I'm going to use my left trigger as a demonstration, in order to hold and shift to a different action layer. For this demonstration, my left trigger is going to shift to the LT.shift action layer. So basically, if I were to use the action layer hold option, it's supposed to work as a shift button, but it is not doing that. Now, I just want to clarify something here to avoid confusion. When I say shift button, I'm not referring to an actual shift button found on your keyboard. I'm just using it as a reference term to illustrate the function of what that button performs. Okay, so I'm going to go into my left trigger here. I'm going to show you where you're going to apply the hold action layer. That's where you'll generally find it. And you don't want to use this. And the reason why, and this is the bug, it only works about 50% of the time. And what I mean by it only working 50% of the time is if you once you apply it as a hold, what's going to happen is you'll be in game, you'll be playing, you'll apply your shift, you'll shift over to your LT shift action layer, and then maybe you'll release it. And then once you release it, you're still stuck in your LT.shift action layer, which is breaking your controls. So that is a bug. It's not reliable. I don't recommend using that. There is no fix. However, I have figured out a workaround that I have been able to get working 100% of the time. I have yet to have it fail once I've set this up, and I will show you how to do that here. So what you want to do is you want to go into your left trigger. Again, this is to any button you set up with action layers. It doesn't have to be the left trigger. That's just what I use. So I'm going to go into my bindings. I'm going to select apply action layer instead of hold action layer. So I select apply action layer, I hit OK. Now I select my LT.shift action layer, I hit OK. And now whenever I press this left trigger, it's going to apply that action layer. But, and just to let you know, we're not done, because yes, we've applied this action layer. So now when I press the left trigger, it's applied it. But when I let go, it's still stuck on that LT shift action layer. So now, in order to remove it, when we release it, we need to go into the action layer itself, the LT.shift action layer. So we're going to go in here, we're going to go to the left trigger, and we're going to apply a release press, and we're going to apply a remove action layer. And we're going to apply it to the LT.shift and hit OK. So now what you'll do is when you go to apply that action layer, you press it, it'll apply that action layer, and when you go to release it, it will remove it. 100% works every time. Now, one other thing I do want to mention that I probably should have mentioned just a moment ago is I generally like to put a slight delay just to make sure that there's no issues with that. I have actually played with it with no delay, and it works perfectly fine. But sometimes I don't fire off my secondary buttons when I'm shifting to them in time because of coordination. That's just something with myself. So I like to put a delay usually around where the T ends for start. But if you really want to go all out, you can always put it under the Y. Doesn't really matter. It's just nice to have that little delay. And all the delay does is it delays that release press, giving you just a little more time to press the button you want and release it so you can get back to your main action set. But that is the action layer hold bug and a way to get around that. Okay, the next bug I want to discuss is profile save complete. Now, after saving a profile to the Steam cloud, you will be left with a confirmation window to select OK to close. Now, normally when hitting the A button, which is equivalent to hitting the Enter key or left mouse click, it will close that or any other confirmation and allow you to remain in the profile configuration screen. Now, the bug is that it generally won't close, which leaves you stuck and unable to navigate your controls. Now, this is a bit random, but more often than not, it will not close. And I'll go ahead and demonstrate that here. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Export Config. I'm going to save new personal binding. I'm going to hit the A button to save. We get a confirmation window, success. Now, this basically just lets you know that you have successfully saved your profile and it has been uploaded to the cloud. Now, I should be able to hit A to close OK, and it's not doing anything. So you're kind of stuck. And although you can kind of navigate around your profile, you can't really do anything to it. I mean, not reliably because you've got this dialog box in your way. So what do? Hit the B button. And then it'll take you out of controller configuration. Now you can hit A for OK to close it. Now you can go back into your controller configuration. Okay, the next category that I want to discuss is action sets and layers. Now, there are two bugs and one issue here that we need to discuss. We'll start with bug number one in regards to action sets and layers deletion. Now, when action sets or layers are deleted, they will automatically be reordered and reassigned in your profile mapping, which for the most part breaks your controller configuration. There is no fix for this. There is no workaround for this. After deleting, you just have to go back in, manually reapply the correct action set or layer. Valve, if you're watching this, Please fix this ASAP. Bug number 2, action sets and layers renaming. Now, when you rename, sometimes, not always, it will apply the new name the first time you enter the change. But if it doesn't, what you need to do is just go in and reapply the rename, and it will go ahead and accept it. Usually you don't have to do that more than twice. Incidentally, renaming action sets and layers will not break your controls. The third thing that I want to mention is just an issue. It's not really considered a bug. It is action sets duplication. When you duplicate an action set, it will not duplicate any action layers from the action set you duplicated from. There's no fix for this. There's no workaround. You have to manually recreate any action layers you need. Again, Valve, if you are watching this, please fix this ASAP. Okay, the next issue I want to discuss is gyro, specifically Gyro Drift. Now, both the Steam and DS4 controllers will sometimes suffer from Gyro Drift, which I have only found to occur when using Gyro Mouse. Gyro Mouse joystick, which is equivalent to your right analog stick, has never posed any issues with drift, but that doesn't mean it can't or won't happen. I primarily use Gyro Mouse as it provides more versatility than Gyro Mouse joystick. The first fix that you can try for this particular issue is make sure you don't have any Bluetooth or Steam dongle range issues. The next fix is, and this is mostly just for the Steam controller, it doesn't apply to the DS4 controller, is to try recalibrating your controller. The third fix is try turning off the controller, shut down Steam, relaunch Steam, power on the controller. If that doesn't work, the next fix option is reboot your PC. The final fix that I want to mention is try using another Bluetooth dongle, such as a different brand. I had issues using the Sony Bluetooth dongle, but once I replaced it with a standard dongle, it fixed my gyro drift. All right, we are on the final issue that I have to offer in this video, and it is regarding the controller with Steam not working correctly. Now, on occasion, which doesn't happen very often, your controller will start acting weird and unresponsive. I have a few troubleshooting tips that I will mention, and I recommend going in the order that I will be mentioning them in. The first fix is to manually, meaning use your keyboard and mouse instead of the controller. If the controller obviously has become, wonky, unresponsive, whatever, use your keyboard and mouse to check your profile for anything weird that you may have done to your configuration that might be causing the issue. Obviously, if you've used that profile before and there wasn't any issues before, you haven't made any changes, then this doesn't apply. So move on to the second option for fixing. Try turning off the controller and then power it back on. Now, just a quick note, typically you have to restart your game in order for the controller to hook back into the game. So just want to mention that, because if you just turn it off and turn it back on and you notice it's just not working at all, it might not even be it might not necessarily be the original problem you had. It's just the fact that it's not actually hooking into your game. The third fix is power off the controller, shut down Steam, relaunch Steam, and then power on the controller again. If that doesn't work, the next fix option is try another controller if you have one. More often than not, it is the Steam software, but it's always good to check and eliminate. The next fix I would like to mention is try shutting down or rebooting your PC. Sometimes your system may just need to be rebooted. The next option is, and it's a little bit of a long shot, but try another Bluetooth dongle. If you're still having problems, just maybe swap it out and try another dongle. The final fix I want to mention is if you still have issues, then it's possible you may have some other issues related to your system that are not directly tied to the Steam software or your controller. Okay guys, that's the end of this video. You know what to do. Like, dislike with a nice middle finger. Leave questions, comments, constructive criticism below. Newcomers, feel free to subscribe, and trolls are always welcome for a good laugh. If any of you found this information to be a benefit and you are so inclined, I have a PayPal donation link in the comments below. Donations are never expected, but are always appreciated. And as always, keep gaming, guys.